Welcome to the Awakened Therapist podcast, where we explore a holistic and transpersonal approach to psychotherapy. In season 4, you'll hear live therapy demos, case consultations, and dynamic teachings designed to awaken transformation in yourself, your clients, and the world. I'm your host, Harmony Kwiker. As a psychotherapist, author, and visiting instructor at Naropa University, I created this podcast to empower you to deepen your presence, expand your awareness, and trust the sacred unfolding that happens in authentic therapeutic contact. To learn more about our trainings, community, and resources, check us out at awakentherapist.com. When we choose to become a therapist, we are choosing to sit at the feet of suffering with deep, deep reverence. There is so much suffering in the world, and to walk this path is, in part, a willingness to meet that suffering directly, day after day, with a deep trust in the resilience of the human spirit, where we trust that something within each and every person is always moving towards healing. This work is not simply about helping people. It's really a calling that asks us to show up with presence, with deep humility, and with a commitment to bringing more tenderness into a world that often teaches us to harden. If we are fortunate enough to sit with clients, we are given the privilege of participating in something sacred. This is soul work. And while the client really benefits from this type of space holding and therapeutic container, so do we. Our soul also thrives in a container that honors our clients in this deep, deep way. When practiced in this way, therapy really becomes a spiritual practice. It's an ongoing return to presence. It's a practice of meeting each moment with awareness, of staying rooted in our own source of energy and supporting our clients in finding their way back to their own source of energy within them. We're honoring the spiritual dimension of humanity while also staying trauma informed and listening to the depth of the nervous system and the wisdom of the body and the personality constructs that developed as a way to adapt to an environment that was not designed for a person's well-being. To be a steady presence for our clients and have the capacity to sit with everything that's here, all of the layers that emerge, and trust the innate wisdom and the innate spirituality of the client to find their way through everything that is present within them, we begin to explore the many dimensions of what it means to be human. Transpersonal counseling is a truly holistic approach to psychotherapy. It recognizes that healing doesn't happen in parts. It's not only about cognition or behavior change, but healing happens across the full spectrum of our being, mind, body, spirit. And within this orientation, we're not only working with symptoms and patterns, but we're also working with consciousness itself. We're listening for how a person organizes their experience in the present moment, and we're attuning to what is happening within the client's thoughts, within their body, within their emotional landscape, and the subtle movements of energy that live beneath words. And we're trusting that all of it carries wisdom, every single thing, even a construct that causes a client the most suffering. Deep within it, if we listen with as much reverence as we possibly can, we can hear the wisdom of that suffering. And it is in this deep ability to honor every aspect of the client that really unlocks the healing potential from within. To engage the therapeutic process transpersonally really calls on us to access a more expanded aspect of ourselves, where we are seated in awake awareness and we are differentiated from our ordinary mind, from our conditioned self, from our personalities, from the ideas of right or wrong, good or bad. And we're holding this welcoming, non-judgmental, expanded state of consciousness. And if you consider the ordinary mind to be a generator of thoughts, a generator of meaning and ideas and analysis and interpretation, well, awareness then is more like an antenna. It's receptive. It receives ideas and transmissions from the field itself without searching for them or creating them. And when clients are met from this stance, from the seat of awareness itself, there's nothing to resist or defend against within the environment. So any resistance or defenses arise from within them as an intelligent expression of unfinished business from the past. But whatever is alive in the client, we meet from awareness and we invite them to meet themselves from the same degree of awareness. It's a very gentle invitation where we continually create openings to awareness. If a client is seated in their ordinary awareness and we ask them what they notice in their body, they'll be looking at their body from their mind and interpreting their sensations from their thought-based reality. But slowly over time, as we continue to create more and more openings for awareness, clients will build the capacity to meet themselves from deep embodied awareness where there's a congruence between their mind and their body, where their entire being is filled with this welcoming, non-judgmental awareness, even brought to the thoughts itself. And from this place, organismic self-regulation begins to come online. And this is not something we impose, it's something that we create the conditions that allow it to emerge naturally and organically. As therapists, we are not the ones creating change. And this is so important because I think many therapists believe that their value comes from creating change for their clients. We're participating in a field where the change becomes possible. When the therapeutic container is oriented in such a way where the clients are the healer in the room, and we, as the clinician, are simply the mirror that allows them to see themselves clearly, this shifts the entire orientation of the work. When we trust that the client carries the wisdom of their own healing, we no longer position ourselves as the expert in the room. We're not here to fix or to lead them somewhere that they're not already capable of going on their own. Instead, we're here to reflect, to attune, and to create the conditions where their own inner knowing, their sovereign will can come forward as the guide to their transformation. The mirror we offer is not analytical, it's not interpretive, it's relational. We stay in authentic engagement with our clients. So, what that means is that we might be learning something about our client, or we might be seeing something in them that they can't see in themselves. When we stay in authentic engagement and offer what we're seeing as a reflection, and then ask them what they notice about themselves, we're honoring the sacred boundary and still deferring to their own wisdom and sovereignty as the guide of their healing. So much of the trauma and pain that people carry comes from experiences where power was misused, moments where someone else positioned themselves as the authority, as the one who knows, and in doing so, disrupted the person's connection to their own inner knowing. This approach is inherently reparative to that. It restores the client to themselves. It reconnects them with the part of them that already knows, that already senses, and already carries the intelligence of their own healing. And from this place, the reflection we offer becomes deeply meaningful. It's a reflection that comes from presence, from listening to what is emerging in the moment and offering back what is seen in a way that is clear and grounded and free of agenda and free of judgment. Attunement to a client's present moment expression, to their emotions, their energy, to their sensations, and the subtle movements within their body and within the field itself may be one of the most essential ways that we meet our clients. And I find that many therapists hold back attunement for fear of being misattuned. When we have hesitation to name what we are seeing or sensing, It may very well be our own attachment wound that is preventing us from showing up fully for our clients. I find that those therapists who are drawn to transpersonal counseling were more often than not the seers of their family, where they could see all of the dynamics and the energy and the unspoken dynamics, and there wasn't a safe space to say it, or if they did try to say it, they were discounted or shamed or undermined in some way. And so now, as a clinician, when we see or sense something in our client and we don't say it, we're allowing that unfinished situation to create a distance or a gap in our work. And the truth is, attunement is a therapeutic risk. When we're seeing something in the client that they are unaware of or they're not saying first, we are taking a risk by letting them know that they seem a certain way to us. But our deep attunement is an invitation to the present moment experience. And this is what invites a client to move from hyper identification with their thoughts into the present moment, into the here and now. And this is where healing happens. This is where transformation happens. The combination of embodied awareness with the present moment as our home base in collaboration between us and our clients. This is where we find our way through the therapeutic content. So instead of getting lost in thoughts or ideas or meaning making, we can invite the client into the present moment by offering them an attuned reflection. I find that when we use language that is neutral and descriptive, we offer what we're seeing in a way that's non-judgmental and non-pathologizing. So, for example, if you're sitting with a client who is talking a lot and sharing a lot of ideas, and they're not really taking a deep breath or pausing in a way to be in contact with you, they're sort of lost in their own mind. As they're talking, we can listen to the stories that they're telling and the meaning that they're making. But as we do that, it's important that we also sort of zoom out, get more of a landscape view, and see how they are expressing as they talk. This degree of attunement is an invitation into the here and now. So, for example, we might say something like, as you're talking, it seems like you're discounting yourself. What do you notice about yourself? And so, this is attunement to the thought itself, to how the thought is being expressed rather than what the thought is saying. And you'll notice that I follow that up with an awareness continuum question of what do you notice about yourself? So that I'm letting my client know that this is how they seem to me, and I want to know how they seem to themselves. So another option might be as you're talking, it seems like you are really speeding up. What do you notice about yourself? Or as I'm listening to you, it seems like your mind keeps getting pulled outside of the room. What do you notice about yourself? So we're simultaneously mapping their inner world and attuning to their present moment expression. And this is an invitation into the here and now. And if you consider how attunement, really being seen for who you are, is one of the things that children long for and is lacking in so many ways for so many children, our attunement is reparative. And as I was saying before, it's not only reparative for our client, if we have our own wounding about hiding what we're seeing, it's actually reparative for us too. This is a synergetic experience, and that's what makes it relational. It's not that we're focusing on our healing and prioritizing what we need, but we are fully and authentically engaged in the therapeutic encounter. And as a human being, our experience is part of that. And that's the beauty of this transpersonal work. In the realm of the transpersonal, we are simultaneously interconnected, where there is no separate other, while also being uniquely ourselves. And so we're touching into that place of interconnectedness. And when we attune to our client, it's not about being right. And I can see this holding a lot of therapists back. Like, how do I know if I'm right? It's not about being right. It's really about being in relationship with what's emerging, being congruent and in authentic engagement with your client in what we call the dialogical relationship. When attunement is offered in a grounded and open way, where we're genuinely curious about how the client sees themselves, right? We're not saying that the way I see you is how you actually are. What we're saying is how I see you is how you seem from here. And our witness and our clear seeing is an essential component to the therapeutic container. But this is where our attunement becomes an invitation rather than a statement. So we might use a sentence stem like you seem or it seems. You seem really still might be an attuned reflection to somebody who seems like they're in a freeze. Or it seems like you are capping your emotions off in your throat. What do you notice there? If somebody is really crying and they're holding their emotions down in their throat, that's a very common experience in therapy. Or I keep getting this sense of just to find a way to name something that we're sensing that might not seem obvious. It's important to remember that intuition is beyond logic. And so what we're seeing and what we're sensing might not always be the most logical thing, but if it's here for us, it's in the field. If we don't say it, we maintain incongruence, and our incongruence actually compromises the safety of the field. And when we do say it, we offer energetic coherence to the container where our thoughts, feelings, and actions are congruent to our current experience. And that creates safety in the therapeutic container. And again, all of these reflections are offered with the understanding that the client's experience will either confirm, refine, or redirect what's being seen. That's the intuitive, collaborative process of a present moment transpersonal approach to psychotherapy. The other thing that's happening here is that when we offer attunement combined with an awareness continuum question like this, it really invites the client to check in with themselves and to become more self-attuned. It brings awareness to something that may have been just outside of their consciousness, or it may be so familiar to them they wouldn't have thought to say it to us. And when our attunement lands, there's a recognition in the client that they do exist, that they are real. It affirms their humanity in the deepest way. This experience really offers our client a sense of being seen that allows their whole system to settle and to open at the same time. And this level of attunement and invitation to self-attunement is really where co-regulation begins to happen. Through our attunement and our clear seeing, the client experiences being met and being seen and having their humanity confirmed. And through self-attunement, when we invite them to attune to themselves, they begin to turn toward their inner world and they begin to access their interoceptive awareness, which is essential for them to learn how to regulate their nervous system. From here, I often invite clients to self-validate, which you've heard in the therapy demos throughout this season. I find that self-validation invites clients into inner congruence. And when they're congruent within themselves, they become a safe space for themselves. They're no longer resisting or judging themselves. And so they're beginning to offer themselves the conditions of safety that their nervous system really needs in order to find their way through their dysregulation and to stay connected to themselves through their dysregulation. They learn to allow their experience without pushing it away or rejecting it. And self-validation really invites inner compassion. So whether it's for the thought, in my example before with a client who's talking a lot, I believe I said something like, it seems like you're really trying to figure this out. What do you notice about yourself? If that landed for them and they said, yes, I really am, I might invite them to close their eyes and just attune to the way their mind is trying to figure something out and then validate it. It makes sense to me that you're trying to figure this out. And I just invite them to take a few breaths of self-validation to that experience. Not only is this regulating for the nervous system, it's also inviting clients to shift levels of awareness from hyper-identification with their mind into awake awareness, which is the witness of their experience. And again, this is a transpersonal approach to psychotherapy where we're supporting our clients to engage the therapeutic process beyond their personal identity. Clients often arrive at sessions identified with their thoughts, believing that their thoughts hold the truth of who they are, and they get caught inside of this pattern trying to understand or resolve themselves. And as this work deepens and as the co-regulation unfolds and the client comes deeper into the present moment and deeper into embodied awareness, they ultimately increase their capacity to be with their experience without getting overtaken by it. And this is what creates the space for the client to find their way through their pattern and reconnect with their sovereign will and discover a new way that they want to be in the world that's more congruent with the truth of who they are. There's also an opportunity to offer clients different experiments that support them in shifting the therapeutic container in such a way that they get to explore their inner content with more spaciousness, with more awareness. For example, in a couple sessions, I did a two-chair Gestalt experiment with my demo client. And each time he sat in any given chair within the experiment, he could feel the consciousness of that seat holding that aspect of his mind or his inner world, and was given the opportunity to process and metabolize and mobilize the energy that was being held in that construct. And so I'm facilitating him in a dialogue with his inner world. And he gets to find his way in his own way and in his own time through what is being held internally. And this is a very integrative experiment where he first unblends the two aspects of himself by really sitting firmly in one seat and really feeling into that. And we really slow down there. And then eventually shifting over to the other seat and slowing down there and having a dialogue between the two. And ultimately, a client will arrive at more choice, more awareness, more sovereignty and autonomy, and more congruence. But the beauty of transpersonal counseling and Gestalt therapy is that it's a very creative approach to psychotherapy. I often do two-chair experiments and demos because I think it's important for therapists and students to really understand how to facilitate a two-chair experiment. But really, anything that emerges within the field that you collaborate with your client and you have the consent that they want to do this experiment and you're finding your way through it together is welcome. That might be working with the inner young one and repairing the attachment system and learning to reparent oneself. Or it might be clearing an introjection, which you did here in this season with the session where we're working with the obligation. Or it might be healing ancestral wounds, or a client might have a past life memory that enters into the therapeutic space, or any number of other experiences might arise that are transpersonal and mystical and transcendent and can be worked with therapeutically in an evidence-based way via Gestalt therapy and transpersonal counseling in a trauma-informed way, in a way that defers to the client's innate wisdom as the guide to their healing and offers deep repair to their system that is really practical for their lived experience outside of the therapeutic container. I see the healing that happens in therapy as the place of exploration, but real transformation actually happens outside the therapeutic space in the client's lived and daily life. And really, I think spirituality is important so long as it is practical. Meaning, having these big transpersonal experiences in therapy or at workshops or in any number of other modalities or experiences are really important in our learning and in our transformation. But the way that we can bring that into our lived world, into our daily life, into the way we treat ourselves and the way we treat others is how the suffering in the world begins to transform. And as you know, the suffering that we see in our clients doesn't exist in isolation. They exist within a social context. It's part of a larger field, and it's shaped by relationships and systems and by moments where people are not seen or heard or met, or where they don't see or listen to themselves. And in many cases is perpetuated in the way that we continue to relate to ourselves and to others. So, as clients begin to meet themselves with more awareness and more compassion and presence within the therapeutic space, that way of being extends outward. It touches their relationships, it shifts how they respond to others, it interrupts patterns of reactivity and defensiveness and disconnection. And in this way, big change is happening. The ripples happen outside of the therapeutic space. And over time, this is how suffering in the world begins to shift and soften and transform. And this is really where therapists have such an important role in society, in our communities, and in the world at large, that in a really deeply active and intentional way, we are bringing more peace to the planet. We're willing to sit in the presence of pain and conflict and fragmentation without escalating it, without trying to dominate it or turn it away. Instead, we're creating opportunity for it to be alchemized and transmuted in a very nonviolent way. And so, in a world where so much suffering is perpetuated through reactivity and disconnection and misuse of power, we really become somebody who interrupts that pattern, who interrupts the way our clients have internalized it, and thus the way they engage with the world around them. Many years ago, I was sitting in meditation and I received this information so clearly that individual self-love and transformation is the path to planetary restoration. I believe that being a therapist is an active prayer for the world, where every day we're saying a prayer for peace through our lived experience, through what we're offering the world, through our presence, and through the spaces that we hold for others, through the way that we meet suffering, and through our willingness to hold space without adding any harm. Each moment of attunement, each act of care becomes a part of that offering. So, while many therapists experience burnout, compassion fatigue, and the weight of sitting with so much pain day after day, to sit at the feet of suffering and hold this prayer is to return again and again to presence and to trust and to a deep honoring in every client's dignity. When we stay connected to the deeper truth that we are not responsible for fixing or carrying what we witness in our clients, but for how we show up to relationship with it, the experience of being a therapist can be energizing and actually restore our faith in humanity. And from that place, something within us can remain resourced and steady and open and really able to trust that even in the presence of pain, the human spirit is still moving toward healing and towards peace. If you found this episode meaningful and want to deepen into the practices of transpersonal counseling, check out our trainings at awakentherapist.com. We have live, online, and go at your own pace offerings that are designed to empower you to unlock the magic of psychotherapy. Thank you for continuing to learn the art of creating a truly sacred healing space for your clients.